I'm Dave Crane. Now I also do gigs like this. And I can train you to be able to work with people like this. And then you also can do gigs like this. Come join me and we'll take your speaking to a whole new level. Good morning, it's me, Dave Crane. How are you today? Welcome to Speak on Stage. Today's show is all about your ability to understand what it's done. It's not even about your ability, it's about just watching like this. But my ability to share with you what it's like to host huge events. And if you're wondering what huge events look like, well, really big. Now, why should I bring it up now? Let me tell you, first of all, we've been through the lockdown, quarantine across the globe, and most events of the type that we're looking forward to, like the Olympics, Expo 2020, and all these other things, have been postponed or moved or cancelled indefinitely, pending somebody going, white flag, red flag, green flag. I don't know what order it's meant to be to start an event, and so if you're using flags, your social media is really, really messed up. But the bottom line is, there have been no big events for ages. Now, they're not going to stay like this forever, and in many ways, things have changed. Let me explain to you. So, in many ways, they've gone from what would be a physical, in-your-face type event, like, you know, anything that happened at a conference, anything at a sports event, a concert, all these things, to being virtual platforms instead. So with virtual platforms, what happens is people literally stay at home, in most cases, but they get a chance to watch it from their laptop. Sometimes they just watch it and it's a Zoom call, or sometimes it's really exciting because what they do instead is they have a little avatar of you that can walk around inside a virtual world. Let me just turn this down a little bit because I'm fighting against the music. That's better. A little bit. That's better. Can you hear me?
Certainly.
Good, right, there we go. So, I think that what we're coming out of now is a long, long period of worldwide drought of events, which is going to lead to a frenzy of events, which is what we all really want to see. The only thing that's not going to lead to a massive frenzy, because a lot of places are still locked down, and also because in many cases, organizers have got to revisit the landscape. Okay, because first of all, you've got staff that have had to be laid off indefinitely. Then you've got sponsors who may or may not still want to go ahead with the events or put their money into something because their supply chains and their own challenges of their industries have been happening. Plus, you've got people who are scared to turn up to events. You've got speakers who are still keen to work, MCs and acts entertainment that can certainly get involved in it, but they have their own fears about social distancing, and they also have to have logistics of traveling. So, in many cases, airlines are still charging a lot more for a ticket because of the fact we've got to have social distancing to make it balancing on a plane financially. So you're going to pay more for that spaced out ticket. Not a spaced out ticket as in, hey, wow, that ticket has just spaced me out, but a spaced out ticket. Do you know what I mean?
Allowed time? No.
Do you know what I mean?
No.
Do you?
No.
Do you?
I said no.
Okay. Social distancing, bit of a gap. You're allowed to sit down, but don't touch anybody. Does that make sense?
Of course.
Thank you. So with that, it's very simple. All you're going to do is really work out what your actual industry is going to do, and also the cycle of your event. You may have missed the boat when it comes to doing your event. Is it a summer event? Is it a winter event? Is it one where it doesn't matter because it's basically indoors? Well, depending on the time of the weather, it's better to do it outside, but if you've got snow and rain and wind and all these other things, you can't do that. So it really depends on where you are around the world. As you can see, I'm based in Dubai, so it's relatively easy for us here because we tend to do indoor events more than anything, apart from in the winter, when it is now, when things go outdoors. And so it's kind of best of both worlds here. In the summer, it's really, really, really hot. and in the winter it's unbelievably pleasant all the time. So I've just discovered the event season has just kicked in. I was involved in a really big event. I told you about it. I showed a clip for you yesterday, and it's the Guinness World Record for the tallest fountain of all time. And I'll show you more about that later on. I've got two reports from the event. There's the event there, covering my face. The world's largest fountain is here, and we did this event on the 22nd of October on the Point, which is on the Palm Jumeirah, and it's basically a palm tree reclaimed from the sea, and it's really posh, and it's really elegant, and everything from Atlantis to you name it, whatever hotel chain you can think of, has set up their home there, and it's a really glamorous event. And this is the biggest fountain, and not just a fountain like, oh, look at that, that's a really big fountain. Oh, look at that, it's really exciting. Oh, look at that. Oh, I think I need to go to the bathroom now. Not like that. This is a fountain that sings and dances, does all sorts, and makes it all go like that. Do you remember the Bellagio at the end of Ocean's 11? When what happened was all the guys stood around, looked out in the waterfall, and it was all going up and down, and then we walked off one by one with the music, Claire de Lune, I think it was, playing in the background. Don't remember that? Well, it was a really amazing scene. But since then, the world record has been in Korea, I believe, for 11 years of the world's biggest fountain. Well, that record was trounced on Thursday. I've got a couple of reports for it, and I'll share them with you through this show. We're also going to be doing a big deep dive into events, period. Now, I host events. I sometimes facilitate events, quite a lot actually, as a show caller, but I don't often put together the event because that's not my actual interest or skill set, to be honest with you. Making all the phone calls, balancing all the books, and saying, well, that price is that price, best price. I don't get a buzz out of that at all. I get a buzz out of the sharp end, walking into a venue, having a microphone, and saying, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this event, and then taking it through the roof as a speaker, as a host, as an entertainer, or sometimes just like threading it all together. Because there's tons of things you do at front of a stage, tons of things you do at the back of the stage, and literally you're like a swan. So on the surface, you're elegant and it looks like it's an easy job to do. Behind the scenes, like a swan underwater, your little legs are pedaling to make sure that everything comes together. Now, I've done a number of world events. I've done them in tech, I've done them in fashion, I've done them in CIOs recently, I've done them in rugby, I've done them in football, I've trained the team for the Special Olympics. You name it, I've been involved in something at some point. Oh, the World's Ultimate Strongman Championship. I hosted that with a team as well. All across the world, lots of different places have flown me in, internal auditors events, global internal, everybody. And there's a number of key rules to making sure your event works really well. I'm going to share them with you if you're looking to host an event for the first time. But it'll be very useful for you to take notes of this if you're looking to get in as an MC or as a speaker to start going along and helping out, because there will be a glut of events, or there will be a ton of them coming through in the next couple of months, because people are desperate to try and get it with the good weather and desperate to try and get their marketing budget spent, otherwise they won't get it again next year. So there's not going to be enough people there will be enough people to go around, but you need to make sure that you hit the ground running. Does that make sense? Are you with me? Because it's going to be worth this. A ton of money, yeah? Does that make sense?
Why not?
I think so. So with that, we're going to go through that. We're going to show you also a clip from one of my events that I did before, which is hosting Rugby Sevens, and you get to see a view from where I stand. Now, I go out onto the pitch and talk to people from the pitch, also the audiences. I did this for 20 years, running the entertainment team as well. But a lot of the time, when the action's really hotting up, you do it from inside what we call the Wendy House, which is a communications place, where you'd have TV, you'd have radio, you had your MC team, you'd have all the players coming in, getting interviewed and going away, but you had the team that I ran would all be there in our own special section with a view of the audience, with windows open so we could hear what was going on with the audience, and also the ability to turn the whole event around depending on what was going on. And you're wondering, why, Dave? Why would you need to make it turn around? Well, sometimes people's favourite team goes out. One thing I'll tell you, and it's just the honest truth about it, when England play, the one thing that unites an audience at the Rugby Sevens in Dubai is their love or their hate of the England team. If England are in, lots of people hate them, but they just want to see whether they're going to get beaten. Lots of people love them and they want to see them win. But when they go out, the whole event felt a little bit more flat. And I'm not saying that we're not talking about other teams being fantastic. Australia, South Africa, Fiji, Kenya, you name it, all the teams had support. But everybody loved or hated England in a kind of Darth Vader from Star Wars kind of way. It's the truth. And so, with that, our job was to make sure that the energy was always up. If you have a great game, easy job. Energy's up, play the music, everyone sings, everyone dances, everyone parties. But if you have a long game that's really deflating or dull, then everyone just goes home. Well, don't go home, just get bored. And so you've got to raise the game. Because what we had to do was we had 3 days of live rugby. And in the early days, what we used to go live across the world for the last couple of games, the last 2 hours or so, would be televised live. Until then, the newspapers, magazines would be there, but TV would just take snippets and basically show little bits of it all the way through. We had to make sure that when we went live, we had this massive crescendo of people saying, oh my goodness, what's happening in Dubai? What a great party. I wish I was there. So you had to build it all up and you had to know exactly what to do with your audience. Now, we talked about gamifying before, gamifying your team. I showed you how to gamify an audience in that episode. If you've not seen it, it was a couple of days ago. Look for wherever you are now on social media. Have a look, and you'll see exactly where we are with that. Gamifying was the key to being able to make that event work. And the key to it as well is not to be too far up yourself with the actual sport. Lots of people think that sport is the only key. And they're the sponsors, they're the organisers, they're the sports people. But an audience generally doesn't care about anything apart from what's in it for me. This is true for this is people. So you've got to make sure that when they go along, they have a good time. And if they have a good enough time, they'll come back and they'll spend money and they'll bring their friends. Does that make sense? Great. So we're going to be looking at how to organize a really good event. I'll be giving you tips about how to host an event. I will show you some examples of what happened on Thursday at the event I was opening, which was for Disney Arabia OSN at the Palm, where we got the Guinness World Records team to acknowledge, that was Danny Hickson and his team, to acknowledge it was the biggest fountain in the world. I'll be showing that to you. I'll show you some rugby and I'll show you some other stuff as well. So it's going to be very exciting. Meanwhile, you've got to get one of these. You gotta make sure you got your coffee. I've got my pumpkin latte. It's true. You know pumpkin latte, and you're going, what do you mean? You got spiced pumpkin latte. It's true. This is something that comes around once a year for about 2 seconds. Starbucks normally let you have it for about, 2 weeks actually. And you go along and you go, squiddy goop, squiddy, and it smells lovely. It smells like Christmas. It's like Christmas in a drink. And you know when it's happening, it's just before Christmas, and then it stops just before Christmas, you go, woo, then Christmas happens, you go, way, so it's always a good time. But this year, Starbucks have said that they're not doing it. They're not doing it at all. Can you believe that?
No.
Did it make you angry?
Yes.
How angry?
Absolutely.
See? And I think it's one of those things that when you come to Christmas, I don't know how you deal with it when it doesn't arrive, but I found a way because I wanted it so much more after they did the 2 weeks, and all the 2 weeks of pumpkin latte, and it's gone. It's like when you buy fruit, right? You know when you buy, say, like bananas. So you've got bananas in your house, and they start off green because you just bought them fresh, and you put them there, and you look at them, and I can't them, they're hard, it's going to be horrible, it's going to taste like eating bits of wood. So you leave it. And then suddenly they go yellow enough for you to eat them. So you go, right. Put your pumpkin spice latte down and you eat your banana. And if you hold it for too long, you don't eat it straight away, it goes bleh, and there's brown bits on it. And the brown bits are actually made of poo. Might not be made of poo, it's just brown banana. But the thing is, you know you're disappointed because you missed that little optimum bit. Same with pumpkin spice latte. So what I did was I ordered it online and I got some packets of it. And I've saved them up for this Christmas, just in case they didn't give us any more. And I've got them, and I would recommend that if you've never tasted it before, do. It doesn't taste quite as much Christmassy as it does when you get it from Starbucks. And I know there are other places available. But here's the thing. I'm only mentioning Starbucks, not because I'm being paid by Starbucks or anything like that. You can only get the pumpkin spice latte there. I know. I went around all the other venues and I said, do you have it? I go, oh, no. I'm not even just say no. They say no like you've just said, can I come in and steal somebody's baby? It's like, do you have pumpkin spice latte? No. Almost to the point where we're going to say, I'm going to call the police.
For the last time, no.
Not good. So with that, let's start. Let's start off by reaching out and having a look at some videos, and I'll tell you exactly what happened when I went along on Thursday to a world record of, another world record in Dubai, of the world's biggest fountain. Now, wherever you're from, by the way, we're broadcasting live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, not Instagram, Twitter, and Periscope. So we'd love to have your feedback. Leave your comments. Say hi whenever you pop up. Like it, share it, and subscribe. That way you'll never miss another show. Yesterday's show was rocking it, and the day before's show was rocking it, and you've no idea because you probably missed it because it's a weekend. But don't worry, we're still here. We still love you. Now, if you've seen the Bellagio, and even if you've seen Dubai Mall, you've seen the dancing fountains, this is going to be even more spectacular, even taller, with even more people. 5,000 people, socially distanced, are going to see what I see, and I get the chance to bring on the Disney songs, and I get the chance to bring on the Game of Thrones songs, and you get to see what I see. Have a look at this view. And this is Danny from the Guinness World Records. Exciting day today, Danny, don't you think?
Dave, it's a fantastic day. I mean, will they break the record? Who knows? Oh, I do. But we will find out very, very soon. In approximately 45 minutes, the record holder currently has had the record for 11 years, though. So
where was that?
It's actually in South Korea.
Ah.
So it's a musical fountain in Busan, in South Korea. And they've held it since the 30th of May, 2009.
Well, the nature of Dubai is they change and they win records all the time. So it wouldn't surprise me too much if tonight we see something rather special happening.
Absolutely. Dubai, so in the UAE in general, we have 423 records, and 60% of that is here in Dubai.
No.
Absolutely. 60% of that is in Dubai, followed by Saudi Arabia, followed by Egypt. But 60% of the records held in the UAE are right here.
It doesn't surprise me. I probably watched most of them actually taking place and happening here. So looking forward to see the fountain. Have you seen the fountain in action? Do you know what to expect?
You know what? I've looked at the diagrams, but I've not seen it in real life. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like when it comes alive.
Absolutely, but we know that when it happens, it's going to be spectacular.
Oh, you know it's going to be. It's going to be out of this world. I'm looking forward to it.
Amazing. Thank you. Catch you later on.
Thanks very much.
There you go. There's the man himself. He's responsible for telling everybody whether they managed to do it or not. I've got to say, the atmosphere is starting to build up. Take a look at what I see. It's getting a little bit loud. You might not be able to hear me properly, but you can see. There's the Atlantis. Over on this side, you'll see people starting to gather. So exciting. I've been given the job of bringing on OSN Disney and introducing their songs, especially choreographed for this event. And we've got Game of Thrones as well. So on this side you can see as well. I'm so excited. This is going to change the face of Dubai yet again. Over coronavirus into a brand new world. So I've got an apology to make, by the way, and you probably guessed it, but my mask keeps falling off. Now, I will say in my defense, there was a challenge in the fact that I only have 2 arms. Let me explain. First of all, I have the camera phone, right? The phone is in one hand, which you can see there. In the other hand, I've got the actual microphone. I've got a clipboard, which has got all my notes on. And I've got a big bottle of water stuck just on the bottom of my hand there. Okay, the bottle of water there, microphone, clipboard, and so every time that I try and move my mask up again, I run the risk of everything falling on the floor. So it was difficult because I wasn't expecting to speak at that point. Now, I'll tell you as well, from a social distance point of view, there were clear marks on the floor where people had to stand up, put them about 2 meters apart from each other, and everybody adhered to that, which I'm glad to say was fantastic. Anybody who wasn't wearing a mask was asked to leave by security or go and get themselves a mask, and people were walking around handing out masks to people as well. So it was very well looked after, and I didn't feel unsafe, and I felt that we'd done a really good job of making sure that everybody knew exactly what they were meant to do and where to be. Okay, so now you're thinking, Dave, well, what happened? Did it get the record? Well, I've already told you it did, but what did it look like from that point on? Well, my job is to introduce the big songs by Disney, and to welcome the audience and to say that we've got the record, and you'll get to see exactly how I did that from the point of view of hosting a really world-class event, which is what today's event really is all about. That's me at the World CIO Summit. That was last November, I think it was. And you've got dignitaries from all around the world. So you've got to do a couple of different things when you're doing an event like this. You've got to make sure, first of all, that you are ultra professional. You've got to make sure that you slow things down because not everybody speaks English as a first language. You've got to make sure that the audience enjoys themselves, and priority has to go to making sure the event wins. The event has to, even if it's a one-off world record, you need to make sure that everybody goes along, says that was amazing, I can't wait for the next world record to come along. So you got your sponsors, you got your venue, you got your audience, you've got the Guinness guys who want to make sure that it's up to the standard of what they will recommend people work with in the future. And you've got all the TV cameras and social media that are also taking care of everything. Now, there's also a challenge that goes into doing anything like that, which is the fact that Facebook, Instagram, YouTube are super hot on playing music. If you've got pop music going on and you're filming something like fountains, there's a very good chance that they'll actually block the footage because of the fact that you haven't got the copyright use. So when you do it, you either have to talk over it so it sort of breaks it up so it can't really tell that you're breaking copyright. I think you're allowed 30 seconds normally, certainly in a broadcasting point of view, but in terms of YouTube, the algorithms are so hot, same as Facebook and Instagram, that they can catch you up in it. So you have to talk over it, or later on in post-production, add some new music instead. I kind of got away with it, and I'm going to share that with you as we go into part 2. So I hope you're enjoying it. Are you enjoying it?
Right away.
Yeah, really?
Sure thing.
Are you sure you're just saying that?
Certainly.
Good. In that case, here's part 2. Now you can see the fountain. It's Speak on Stage. Now, if you can't see the view that I've got, just take a look. These are all restaurants, up and down. Got camera crews on the other side. Let's have a quick look down here. I'll go towards the stage so you can see what we've got to do. Now, I'm on in about 15-20 minutes, and when that's on, we're going live across the world to be able to see it as well. So the very first song we're going to share with you, I'll give you a clue. It features Elsa, it features Anna, and it features a little snowball who's all grown up called Olaf. Can you guess which song it is? We will share with you on social media. We'll look at the hashtags OSN Disney Magic, OSN should be tagged, Disney Arabia should be tagged, and the Point Palm should be tagged. So you'll see that in all its glory here tomorrow night. The thing about doing gigs like this is you've got to be ready all the time. You never know what's going to happen, you never know whether the music's going to go the right way, they're going to change the order, the audience is going to be into it, the audience is going to freeze, or you're just going to make a lot of noise and nothing's going to happen. That's showbiz, that's live entertainment. Luckily, when you're doing a gig in a place like this, and you see the Atlantis behind me, it's not difficult. This looks amazing. That makes my job very easy. So thanks to all the people organising it. Thanks to Doreen and Danny from World Records team as well. Doreen from OSN and Fadi from OSN. And also Big Hass and Leal, who are hosting the evening and did all the heavy lifting of making sure the whole evening was a success. And everybody else involved in putting it together, John and his team, the MC team, and the show caller. And it was just an amazing event, as Dubai events always are, as you can see there. Now, the thing about working in an event, and I've been blessed, I've been in Dubai for about 30 years. I've been at the sharp end of so many events. They're world-class events, and it doesn't matter whether you're used to doing something of that scale, every event you do should be considered to be world-class. If you, as a host, want to be able to move up the food chain, you're only as good as the event that you did, and your job is to make sure there's a success. Now, hold on 1 minute. Let me just can you mind have a drink?
Of course.
Thank you. Pumpkin spice latte. Ooh, you can just taste the pumpkin. I can. Yeah, I can. So this is a way of making money, by the way. If you hadn't considered it and you think you've got a bit of a gob on you and you're wondering, could I host events? Well, yes, you could. Whether you're hosting your own events, or you're doing them online, or you're doing them actually when we physically go back to having events again, it is a great side hustle. And I'm hearing from people all the time, oh, Dave, there are no more events. Oh, Dave, it's terrible. And it is terrible, and it is challenging, but it isn't impossible. There are still opportunities for people out there if you look around and you make connections. And there are still events that you can do online. I know that a lot of our entertainer friends, and I'm an entertainer by trade as well. Actually, I got told off of posting one of these shows on a Facebook group because it was told, oh, it's only for people with talent. Hey, thank you very much. I won't take it personally. I am a stage hypnotist as well. I won't say I'm a singer or comedian because I'm not, but I have been funny and I have been known to sing, but usually after a lot of things more strong than a pumpkin latte spice. And I know that if you're a fan of that drink and I'm talking about it and drinking it, you're going, Dave, I really hate you. Where's mine? And the answer is, that was yours. You just have to get it yourself. So I've been hosting Rugby Sevens, and the great thing about Rugby Sevens is we came to the conclusion, as I mentioned before, where rugby is key to it, but also it's the atmosphere for the people, and that's what people pick up on. It's not just about the event. I mentioned this many levels. It's not just about the people who are there and the things that they are doing. It's a knock-on effect of the bragging rights of the event, and people who are there could turn around to friends and say, oh, you missed it. It was fantastic. Now, depending on the type of event, it could be one where everyone's really straight and sober like this, or it could be one that's a excuse me, complete party. Whatever it is, as a host, you have to make sure that you connect with everybody involved in it to make sure it runs smoothly. 99% of the time, you won't notice anything apart from the event was okay and it went really well. And that means that the host has done their job. If you find something that you can turn around and say, oh, well, apart from that element, that was a bit wrong, then the host dropped the ball slightly. Maybe it's not their fault. I've been at events where, even the Rugby Sevens, the generator stopped working. It was raining non-stop, and the generator went off, and the ground was covered in mud and flooded. Dubai got flooded in those days. It's going back about 20, 25 years. So the drainage wasn't up to scratch at that time. So we had cars that were stuck. When we left there, it was carnage. Carnage, get it? Because it had just been torrential rainstorms, and we weren't used to it. I don't even remember a time as bad as that with rains. The generators went off, and so you couldn't hear any sound. So all we could do was get the lighting to work. The lights were still on. So we either had the sound or the lights, and then sometimes we had both. We never had none because we could divert it. So what we did was we had the audience there, and I couldn't use the microphone. So what we did is we went out and we got the guys who were working the scoreboards to start putting lyrics of songs up and got the audience to sing them. And I stood in the middle of the pitch and got everyone just to do that with Wonderwall and the Angels from Robbie Williams. It's true. You improvise, you find a way to do it. I've already mentioned the time that all the lights went off for me in South Africa, in Joburg, when I was doing a gig, a hypno show. I hypnotized the entire audience and then brought them out later on. You always have to find a way to deal with it. Now, it's better if in your mind, first of all, for me, I've been experienced. The grey hair isn't by accident. I've done so many gigs now. I pretty much know what to do when it comes to events. I've even been at events where people have died of old age at the event. It's true. I won't talk about that today. I think we'll talk about how to deal with things that go wrong at an event. We'll talk about that as well in a future episode. Today is just about the basics of hosting a world-class event. And you don't create a world-class event unless you go out to make it a world-class event. Even if you've got a really small one, you should consider it to be potentially world class, and then people will see you as being better, and people will turn around and say, what a great venue, what a great town. You never know how many people are coming in from outside who are considering having an event and are coming along to your one just to observe to see how people react to it. I found some places when I've been working with bands, I've been working with artists of some description, you put it on in one town and it goes crazy. It's brilliant. You go to another town and it's as flat as a pancake. Same entertainment, same thing. Just audiences react a different way to who they are and where they are and what mood they're in and what's been going on, politics or recessions or weather or tired. It all changes. And as a host, you've got to be the person that can taste it like the wind. You basically get the Wi-Fi code of your audience, but there's a number of other factors that come in together, and your job is to make a win. Now, if you're hosting a corporate event, then you want to make sure that the atmosphere is good, but it's still corporate. You don't want people giving Mexican waves and high fives all the way through, because if you do that, then they lose track of the actual purpose of the event, and you can find it very, very hard to get them to pay attention to speakers. You want the atmosphere good, so you raise it up when you need to, but you want it about 65-70% of potential. But when you're doing a rock concert or a sports event, 100%. You want to be able to take it as high as you possibly can. The only time you drop it down at all is if you've got to give prayers, or you've got to give a national anthem, or if somebody's giving a speech and you want to make sure they can be heard. Other than that, you take it straight up to 11 on the dial. So let's have a look at how you do that, and we're going to take a look at Rugby Sevens next. And by the way, we love your thoughts, your comments. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining me. I hope this is useful for you. And if you want to know more about events, contact me privately, directly. I'll give you as much lowdown as I can do, including tips, hints, and if you're looking for me to help you with your event, then let me know about that as well. It's Speak on Stage.
Our champions 2018, we're going to continue the music. By the way, in case you didn't know, we have got our rugby rock continuing, by the way. But one of the British Spears, and also you can see No Oasis. They're going to be out there too, and lots and lots of party music to take into the early hours. We've also got a big bus coming to take you home, as well as Kareem. Remember hashtag Drum One, and we want to make sure you've got the biggest parties in the world. Are you happy tonight?
So welcome back to Speak on Stage. My name is Dave Crane. It's a pleasure to have you here. Today's show is all about live events and how to host a world-class event, of which I've done many, and I want to share with you some tips because you might be planning your events now. Now, here's another thing that's really interesting, more so than ever before. Before lockdown, you had a region, or location deciding what would be a world-class event. So if it was like a central hub like Dubai and everyone travels through it, lots of world-class events happen here. If you're maybe in some kind of region or maybe in a town miles away, then you tend to have local events for whoever it is. Now that things have gone virtual, there's a better chance of your event being a world-class event because you don't need the travel. So at the very basics, you're doing one for your company and they're all around the world, you can call it a world event because you don't need anybody to get in a plane or do logistics or even feed them. They can be catered by their own ability to call their own pizza. So I think you're going to find a blurring of the edges as to what's a world kind of event. Apart from you're going to get more from virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. You're also going to get hybrid events where you've got people actually at the venue and people who are watching at home, or we've got an avatar walking around a virtual world that can observe what's happening at your event and having separate meetings and all sorts. It is bonkers, but it's growing and it's a reality. So what I want to do now is share with you something I got from culturalpartnerships.eu. And this is something written by a young lady. You can see her there. She's called Irina Prokofyeva. Very, very nice there. And she shares with us the 10 tips for organizing a successful event. I think she really sort of hits a nail on the head with this. So it's worthwhile looking up for yourself after we've had this session if you want to know more about it, because events can be hugely lucrative. It can be really powerful. You think about every single person who wants to do something. When you look at the American election, it's all about the events. Now, you've got your social media supporting it, but going out on the road and having a rally or having a town hall meeting with people watching and socially distanced at home, that's all important as well. So, events is ultimately, I believe, one of the most powerful ways to get people to buy into you, buy into your message, buy into your business, and buy your products. So let's start off with this. First of all, when you're putting your event together, define the purpose and, of course, the format you're going to do it. Are you going to be online? Are you going to be a mixture of it? Is it going to be like a conference? Is it going to be like a TED Talk? Is it going to be outside like a fete? Is it going to be sports involved? Is it going, what are you going to put together? How's it going to work? What theme are you going to have? Is everyone going to dress up? Or is everyone going to be formal? Is it going to be brunch? Inside, outside, all those different questions are important when you're putting together your event. If you haven't got that worked out, then you haven't got anywhere to start. All right, number 2, pay, and it's always worth money. Are you interested in money?
Why not?
Okay, it's fair enough. Pay sufficient attention to the planning of your event. That is key. Now, for me as a creative, I don't enjoy the nuts and bolts of the admin. I get bored rigid with that. I don't want to write everything down. I'd rather be thrown into the deep end and go, concept, what are we going to do with this? You've got to work with people who like to be thorough, who like to write down everything, because nowadays you can be sued if you get something wrong. Simple things like having the bathrooms and having, the lighting and the clear entry. Simple things like the car park needs to have signage. Otherwise people park and they walk in the wrong direction and can't find it. And you wonder, where did all the people going to my venue? Now, people who have driven all the way there are keen to arrive and keen to go in, but they find it's really difficult to get in past the first 2, 3 to maybe maximum 15 minutes. Then we'll just say, right, I don't want to be here anymore. And it doesn't matter what you do, they leave and they won't come back again. So all these things have to be thought of in advance and put down at the very beginning if you really want to get the best out of people. So pay the attention, take the time, plan everything. All right. And you do it on Excel sheets, so use a number of different ways of doing it. There are lots of forms and stuff you can use online, especially for events. Okay, and also for an event, when you're planning it and having social media at it, you can have social media apps that look after the audience while they're there. So they can be at the event, they can find people to connect to and do stuff with, and they can also vote, and we can also cheer, and we can also take photos and upload them through the app, and you can reward people for giving the best, photos or best connections. There's loads of ways to monetize and gamify it as well through the planning stage, and they're very cost effective. All right, and then you get everyone's social media. Just saying. All right, number 3, draft your budget, taking into account unforeseen circumstances. Like business, everything's going to cost twice as much and take twice as long to happen, like launching a new business. The same is true for events. There will be things that go wrong. You may end up having to pay extra for a venue. You may find a bus breaks down and they don't give you compensation. And what you have to do is hire a brand new bus to do it. You might find a generator goes down. You're going to do more stuff. You always have to keep a budget to one side. That's just a standard thing. If you don't and you spend it up to the max, look, nothing left. And something goes wrong, that comes out of your pocket because the organisers have paid. The organisers don't want a second check to go out. That's a budget you've agreed. That's what they're going to get. So you've got to make sure from your end that you keep margins just in case. And it is a calculated risk, not least the way it works with insurance. I know you're spending a ton of money for event insurance. Make sure you have it. By law in most countries, if you don't have it, something goes wrong, that is going to cost you. And you do not want that to happen. No. No.
I said no.
Too right. Number 4, the devil is in the details. Spending all that time breaking down every single thing. I mentioned already the signage everywhere, the branding, making sure that you got people who are there. Security has to know exactly where you're going. Also, simple things like making sure there's a map for everybody. If you've got somebody with t-shirts on branded or badges on branded, t-shirts are better because people can find them from a distance. When you go to anybody at an event who looks like they're kind of in charge a bit, they should be able to turn around and answer a question on anything. Where do I need to go to the bathrooms? Where do I need to go to buy some food? Is there a place where I can buy a phone charger? These are questions that are going to go. And you need to make sure that your stewards or your team are all aware of these mundane questions. So make sure that you do all these different things in the planning, brief everybody so they're up to speed. And also, if they say the wrong thing, I guarantee, because of the way the world is right now, somebody will turn around and say, I talked to one of your staff. Can't remember what the name was, but they had a badge on that said Nigel. So it's probably a staff called Nigel, yeah? And he told me completely wrong information. And that's why the world is terrible. And it's all your fault. And that could cost you in the future. Number 5, check the location and have a plan B. The amount of times that I've been at an event and something's gone wrong. Now, I've got to be honest, in Dubai, most of the time the event happens and there is no moving of everybody. People just stay there and it's all been thought through. But there has been occasions where things have gone wrong, where power has been cut, or a fire alarm goes off and everyone has to move outside and we have to do it somewhere else, outside or across the field. Or you can get bad weather, that suddenly happens. So you're outside for a sports day and the weather says it's going to be fantastic and a freak storm comes along. Seriously. So you have to have an alternative inside just in case. So you need to be able to turn around, put the people somewhere, dress up a venue, get the people in and carry on without missing a beat. And that could mean carrying all the equipment and putting it on installed inside. Now that would seem like a relatively easy task, but does that mean when you switch it all off, you've got silence for everybody and you've got to tell people what's going on? So you generally have to then plan contingencies. So if you're going to move everything indoors, well, tell everybody, ladies and gents, because of the rain we're moving indoors, what we suggest is you move into a lobby. There'll be coffees and teas waiting for you, refreshments. You can go to the bathroom, not in the lobby, that'd be a mess. But you're going to do all these things, and we're going to set up in the main room. Now, the best venues will have a plan B already in place. You might be bringing your gear in, but we can still play some background music in the venue that they're going to. So it's going to be a smooth transition. If you don't have that, people will turn around. And supposing your event is worth a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Little things like that, even if you work as hard as you can bring it right down to experiences of 5 or a 6. And you've done a 10 out of 10, an 11 out of 10. But things went wrong. So the closer you can get to working out eventualities and making it a cost-effective solution, the better a chance that you'll end up with a win with your events. And then you get a better chance of getting another one straight away afterwards, or same time next year at least. That makes sense?
Yes.
Thank you. Next up, allocate responsibilities. Do not try and do everything yourself. In fact, to be honest with you, on the day, partly your job is to do nothing. You should have people in place for every eventuality. I found that when I was doing rugby sevens, I was on the pitch with a microphone, but my team knew exactly where they had to be, whether commentating or looking after other pitches or playing music, or they had runners moving around. If I had to disappear, my main job was being on the pitch and entertaining the audience. Then I'd have a gap about 20 minutes, about 15, 20 minutes before I had to come back out and do something. Then I would go firefighting. We'd have challenges, we'd have this, we'd have that. We'd have to get things together, we'd have to get some names for some promotion where I had to get the players, famous players, and interview them and get them ready to go up and do stuff. We'd have games and competitions, I'd have to get people plucked out of the audience ready to go on for the next break. You've got stuff going on all the time, and you've got comms going on all the time. The showrunner's got a really challenging job. It's really thrilling, it's really interesting, but it can be incredibly challenging, especially if you get it wrong, because you only get one good go at doing this, and your reputation is everything. If people turn around afterwards and say, what was the event like? Well, it was really good, but you know, that person was a bit of a pain. I've done it myself. I've refused to work with people again, because even though they were very good at their job, but they were just a pain to work with. Had a massive ego, or wouldn't pick up stuff after themselves, and it became a chore to work with them. And there's so many choices of people to work with. If you want to work again with anybody, you've got to make sure you do that. In fact, there's a story I could tell you. There's a guy called Paul Daniels. I don't know if you know Paul Daniels. Paul Daniels is a very famous magician and TV personality in the UK in the 80s and 90s. Probably later as well, but I left in the 90s. So Paul is a magician. He was an ex-schoolboy from my place, Sir William Turner Sixth Form College in Redcar in the northeast of England, near Middlesbrough. And he came back to visit his old school. And I was the head boy. I was the chairman of all the students. And so I had the pleasure of sitting with him and a small group of teachers and so on for dinner and having a chat with him. And then afterwards he went on stage, had a town hall meeting and answered all the questions. So I asked him a question, how come you're on TV all the time? Because at the time he was on all the time. Not being a magician, he was just a really funny, smart guy who would always be on the game shows. Whenever you turned around, Paul Daniels would be on it. And you're like, well, Paul Daniels again? It's going to be funny, but you know. But the thing was, he revealed a secret to me that I've lived by ever since. He said, there are much more funny people than me. Much more clever people than me. He said, but the reason that they come back to me again and again and again is very simple. I'm easy to get on with. Whenever they've got an event where they're looking towards who can we get in, we can get that guy, he's brilliant, get that guy, he's brilliant. But all of them have egos, or all of them have got certain challenges. They end up saying, well, let's just get Paul Daniels in. Everybody likes him, and he gets on with the job. I said, that's why I get so much work. And I made a point of that. There's not a single person that can complain about my attitude or anything else at the events, and that's why I get called all the time. So if you're starting off as a host, and you're wondering, well, you know, I've got all these people in front of me, I really should have a bit of an ego. Don't. Be as humble as you can. The audience can tell. The organizers don't want to work with anybody who won't get their hands dirty. I mean, I'll go around picking up bits of paper. I'll go around doing whatever it takes, moving chairs. As long as I'm not wearing a suit, I'm going to get chair marks all over me. This is true, because then you'll look bad on stage. But I have no problem, certainly after the event, helping with what I'm going to help with, because it's going to help the event. That's the bottom line. Leave your ego at the door, otherwise people won't bring you back anymore. That rhymes. It's pretty good, that. Do you think?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Money in the bank. All right, then. Number 7 was tell your audience about the event with plenty of time. Let your audience know what's going on. Let your audience know this is coming. You don't want to leave it to the last minute and say, right, we've got an event, because people won't plan like that. They need to know. They need to register. You should make them pay a commission. I mean, not commission, a deposit. If people pay a deposit to come to your event, they will turn up. If they don't pay, they've got no incentive. So a typical word of rule by thumb is 1/3 of the people who register will arrive, certainly on social media. So if you've got 100 people saying they're going to an event, you can only take 100 people, you probably get about 30. You need 300 to guarantee 100 people turn up. Unless it's Justin Bieber playing in his underwear or whatever, I don't know. It doesn't work for me. He makes some money, but not for me. Nope. So with that, make sure that you give plenty of advice. Make sure you give them, and also it's easier if you tap into other people who've got audiences. Don't just throw it out there and say, this event's on, coming down. Get to people who have the target market and bring them in as partners. Much easier then. Is that okay?
Right away.
Thank you. All right, so next up, pay attention to the service that you give to people. It really matters. If people get treated badly or people get treated like scum, they just won't come back again. And one of the biggest challenges for that is your security. Security need to act like they really care. I remember years ago when I lived in the northeast of England, there were a couple of nightclubs that were just the best. The poshest, the richest. You paid more to get in, drinks were more expensive, but the venues were worth it. It was the Mall and it was the Mayor Group. And these guys, there's a family who ran these nightclubs. I remember chatting with the big boss, and he took me around. He educated me about why they're so successful with the doorman. He said, well, here's a fact for you, and this is useful writing down, or at least remembering it. He said 99% of the people who come to a nightclub just want to go in and have a good time. He said they're really nice people. So typically in most nightclubs, you got a doorman, stands like that. I'm in charge, I'm going to do you. If you cause any problems, I'm going to do you. And that's really intimidating. And most people don't do that. They come in about a drink with a girlfriend, with their friends, just want to come in and party and dance and so on. So he said, what we do is we know our guys are super tough, but we teach them to be stewards. Welcome everybody. Say, have a great night. Look forward to seeing you later on and have a laugh with them. So that if there is trouble, they go over and they try and calm it down. They don't throw themselves in. They don't fight. They don't carry people out. It's not a big ego competition. So try and calm people down, and hopefully they'll find a solution without any violence. Put them to one side, calm them down, just sit there for a while, you'll be okay. If the person persists because they've been drinking and the problem still continues and they can't calm them down, then they become bouncers. And they get the people and they throw them out because they're very good at doing it. But what you've got, instead of intimidating the 99% of the people who walk in, you are only there for the 1% who cause problems. So make sure that you look after the 99 as though they're welcome. And this is true for any event you do. Pay attention to the service. Pay attention to all the lovely people. You never know who's going to come in and come back again with a crowd or even hire your venue and your team because they love it. You never know. Dubai's classic for that. In Dubai, you've got so many people who'd walk into a venue, like for instance, walking into a car showroom. Look at all the Lamborghinis, and you might think this guy's got sandals on, he's got ripped jeans, he's got a t-shirt with Beastie Boys on the front, and baseball cap on, and sunglasses. He obviously can't afford anything. Why is he in here? And he'll walk around and say, I want to have a look at this. And go, yeah. Well, it's out of your price range. The guy might be able to buy the entire place, including you. Because you never know. You never know who's there. Madonna had a classic situation where she went to a nightclub once and they wouldn't let her in. So she bought the nightclub and sacked the management the next day. So be nice to everybody and people will look after you as well. All right then. And the key is, as well as I mentioned, when you are doing things, don't let people know necessarily what's going on. Let them know what they need to know. If something's gone wrong, happy face, smile, don't let anybody know, fix it, come back, carry on smiling, and they won't notice, and they don't need to know. Number 9, carry out a final check 24 hours before you go live. You never know, there could be a problem. Some equipment might only arrive just the day before. Check it all out. Can you get the toilets to work? Can you get the equipment in through that door? Will it open enough? If you have to shift it, will you put it somewhere else? Have you got a backup for the generators if it goes wrong? Do you have plans? If the catering has a problem, what are you going to do? If somebody doesn't turn up, are they still covered? Have all your stuff? Everything's got to be planned. But go through it the night before to make sure about everything just in case. And then the hardest bit sometimes is number 10, asking for feedback. Most of the time you're just exhausted. You want to go home, which is great. You've got your check in many cases, but sometimes, and you should get your check. You shouldn't wait until after the event and say, oh, was it okay? Where's the boss gone? Oh, he's on his holidays. 3 weeks. Okay, I'll wait till he comes back. No.
No.
See, what you've got to do instead is make sure that you are paid properly, but also ask for feedback. Get feedback from the audience. If you get feedback from the audience as a survey, a rewarded survey, give them a t-shirt or give them a hat if they fill in the survey. It can be done online. It can be done in any particular way. You've got evidence for the organizers and potential sponsors and future events that your events worked really well. Everybody can turn around and say that was brilliant, but there might be certain things that they say they don't like. What I do with feedback is very simple. When somebody says something to me, I put it into a bag. Somebody says something terrible, I put it in a bag in my mind. I don't walk around with the bag, but I put it into a bag in my mind, and I take out what I can use to make a better event next time. Does that make sense? So even if it's say, I loved it. Somebody says, yeah, but the car parks were difficult to get to. I'll keep that in mind. Car parks. I don't need the brilliant stuff. Yeah, it's great to hear, but the point is I want to make sure that my events get better and better all the time. So there you are, a very quick crash course. It is a huge industry. The events industry is a real challenge to get it right. And in Dubai, it was the second most competitive event after real estate. So always bear that in mind. But it is a very lucrative opportunity for you. And so if you get a chance to work in events, do it definitely. I guarantee. Right then, so my chance to share with you from the hosting point of view, if you're an MC or a speaker, these are very useful tips for you. And there's a lot of arguments for why you should be an MC and a speaker, and lots of arguments why you shouldn't be an MC and a speaker at the same event. Here's me at my Rugby Sevens with the cheerleaders. As you can see, I wasn't old enough to grow a beard, and I had naturally blonde hair, but let's not talk about that. That's in front of, what, about 50,000 people? And about 1 billion watching at home on TV as it goes across all the satellites, fed over 3 days. And you think I'm joking? I'm not joking. I'm seriously not joking.
Certainly.
See? It's true. Okay, so here's a couple of things I'll share with you, about 15 points. When you're going to host events, make sure you talk to the organizers and find out what their vision is for what your event should be. It doesn't matter what your vision is. It only matters about the people that are paying for it. Your job is to make sure that their vision actually comes true. All the things that they want to put into it is something that you need to be able to achieve on their behalf. If you haven't done that, then you can have an event in your eyes which is fantastic because everyone cheered, and they can turn around and say, yeah, but the sponsors weren't happy. You never once brought over the act. The act is like the entertainer, to sing in front of the sponsors. And that could be a real problem. And sometimes the sponsors are miles away. Sometimes the sponsors have gone to the bathroom. Sometimes the sponsors are in their own little room and you've got to keep an eye out for them to come out. But these are guys who are paying, guys and girls who are paying for your event. So you need to know all the different things that are important to get your head round, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so establish a final decision maker. So you might have a lot of different people in charge. Don't be scared to turn around and say, right, who do I answer to on the day? People might say that person, yeah, but who's the final person? It's normally a money person, but most of the time it's an operations person. The money person tends to be doing some money business, But the operations person is in charge of making sure it all comes together. And sometimes that person works for the sponsor. This is especially in a corporate event. And sometimes that person is a show caller who's been brought in from outside or from an events team to run the event and make it all come together. You need to make sure, and sometimes you do have various people that you got to talk to and you got to look out for. You need to be able to turn around for accountability's sake and turn around and ask difficult questions. What should I do now? And they can turn around and say, I would do it this way, and you work on that. You can argue, but you shouldn't ever turn around and not do what those people say. Otherwise, it won't bring it back again. And I've had this many occasions. I've turned around, I've said, what do you think we should do now? I think we should do this. They say no. And you argue it through with them, and then you say, okay, I disagree, but I'll go with whatever you want it to be. And I make a point of saying that. Sometimes I've had situations where they've brought me off early. I've disagreed, but I've done it, and then they apologize later, and they've ruined my chance to do exactly what I wanted to do on stage, but it's their call. It's their event. If a host is there, an MC, and he tells me to get off stage, I've got plenty of time left. As far as my calculations go, I'll still leave, because they know something I don't know, and if I overstay my welcome, they'll never bring me back again. And this is a bottom line rule. I know lots of people who've never been invited back on stage again because they overstayed their welcome, and they use the excuse, but it's going so well, the crowd love me. Who cares? Who cares if the crowd love you? Your job is to fit in. You're being hired to do a job within a certain amount of time, and you have not got the full scale of everything if you're a speaker. The host has, and the organizers have, and there might be a bigger picture. You might be overstaying the welcome when they have 5 minutes, like in Dubai. You may have a sheikh or a member of a royal family or a visiting dignitary who's going to pop in for 5 minutes. For that 5 minutes, you want to say thank you for coming, and you want to make sure that they have the round of applause that they deserve for arriving at your event. If the artist won't get off the stage, and they walk in and walk out again, you've blown your opportunity, that photo opportunity, that chance to tell everybody that they were there, and that chance to get that reward of knowing that people recognized, and they recognize it's worth going to your events because people make a special effort to look after them. These are all money in the bank. You've got to work it out. So now you've got those in play, think like a fan. What do they want to see? Now, this is difficult for a host sometimes because you've already got the organizers telling you what you got to do, but you also have to think from a fan's point of view. What will they see when they arrive, and what can you spin once you go live? So when I mean what can you spin when you go live, what I'm talking about is the fact that you have a certain venue, you have a certain plan, you have a certain thing. But for instance, as I mentioned earlier, in rugby sevens, if England get knocked out, and people don't want to watch anymore because they don't care that much, you've got to build them up about the excitement of the rest of the teams. You've got to play great music, some great games. You've got to make sure that everyone knows what a great event. And isn't it amazing? You saw that team get knocked out. Doesn't matter. We've got more coming up. Excuse me. I know I'm talking a lot about England at the Rugby Sevens, but it was a thing. It was a thing, I promise you. So with that in mind, you always have to be able to spin the plates to make sure that people really enjoy what's going on. Number 4, establish objectives. Is this a one-off event? Do you look for the next event to make sure that you drive everything? So social media, footage, crowd engagement, all these things. You should always treat it like it's a one-off. Always. But always treat it like it's a one-off until it comes back again. Are people going for the spectacle of it? Are they going along because they love it? Are the sponsors driving everything? Should they be looked after more than the actual gig? In many cases, the answer is yes, because without the sponsors, there's nothing. Are you looking after the audience? In most cases, the audience is an afterthought because there's so many other moving pieces. And you're saying, yeah, but what about the audience? That's your job. Your job is to make sure the audience comes out of it loving it. And if you don't do it, then they're going to blame you squarely and say, well, you didn't entertain or engage with people enough. So sometimes you end up having to do a serious, super serious event, but you do it with a tongue-in-cheek attitude. Let me show you, for example, what I'm talking about. So if I share with you this particular event on the front of it, this is the World CIO Summit. So this has about 200-300 of the world's biggest decision makers from every company you can think of, the chief information officer, the guy in charge of all the digital, of all the tech, all of them in a room. I say guy, there were a handful of females, but not enough of them in that particular industry. Incredible event. My job was to be formal and to hold it all together But you've also got to look at your audience. These guys are fantastic, but they are generally shy. Why? Because they're techies, like engineers or programmers. So your job is to overcompensate and make sure it's a lot of fun. If you don't do that, the event will feel dry. And if you've got speakers that are relatively dry, because it's a very techie event, you've got to make sure that sometimes you camp it up. You've got to get a yin and yang balance to get the whole event across the finishing line. That's your job. Okay, so with our sponsors, it could be all of those and the above. It could be anything you've got to make sure you look after in any particular order. Number 5, talk to all the key element decision makers. Key element decision makers. I've already mentioned some of them. I've talked about sponsors, talk about somebody who's bringing crowds in, got to talk about the security, got to talk about the catering, got to talk about the buses leaving. You even might have to talk to the not armed forces, to the police and ambulance people. Just in case something happens, what is the protocol? Who will tell me that you've got to evacuate if there's a fire alarm that goes off? Because it might go off by accident. You turn around and say there's a fire alarm, ladies and gents, you've got to leave a building, people get in their cars and go, you'll kill the event. So the fire alarm should be followed by somebody who's a designated person who tells you exactly what you need to do. And if you're smart and you do it properly, what should happen is long before it gets to that, you should turn around and know what's going to happen. Shouldn't be a fire alarm that goes off. It should only go off when somebody's whispered to you, there's a problem. Could you suggest to people A, B, C, and D? And if you do go down that route, if you are going to send them outside, then you need to be prepared to catch them outside, maybe even with a loud hailer. Or maybe in shouting, or telling waiters and waitresses to go around, or stewards to tell people it's safe, can you come back into the venue, please? If you don't do that, people act on their own, and it's like herding cats. It can be a nightmare, because somebody starts a rumor about what it was, and suddenly before you know it, it gets out of control. I do remember one situation, I probably shouldn't talk about it, so I'm not going to talk about it.
For the last time, no.
See, I just can't.
No.
No,
No.
but I want to.
I said no.
Just one little bit.
N-O.
Okay, keep it to yourself then. Number 6, speak to technical showrunners and agencies for their requirements and objectives. There's so many moving parts involved in putting an event together. The show caller could be you as a host. The show caller could be somebody who's in charge of everything with a clipboard. The show caller could be the organizer who put it all together, but on the day doesn't know how to do anything because they just got all the moving pieces and hoped it would all work. You need to have somebody to report to. Sometimes that report is you, but you need to make sure that you get that call from somebody to say that you're in charge. Generally, a host is in charge, but they're in charge of making sure that the communication goes out, if not the actual timing of the acts going on or that everything else that goes as well. Number 7, learn the event background if possible, and if not, establish a new brief for 3 lines to share with new arrivals. Now that sounds like a lot of things to talk about. Let me explain exactly what it is. So you need to be able to talk about previous events. Welcome back to this event. Last year, as you remember, we had England winning something, probably not, but that's what you're going to be able to say. But you also have to, if it's a new one, turn around and summarize it in 3 lines or less what people are doing. Welcome to the event. It's the very first of its kind, and we'd like to thank the sponsors for being here. And today you're going to see this guy winning the world championship for putting cups on his head. It's a World Cup heading competition, and welcome to it. And if you want to practice and see how there's just 3 things there that you have to have lined up. If you make it up as you go along and you haven't worked out what you're going to have as your strap lines, people will ignore it because it sounds made up. It's going to sound like you've actually done your studying and know what you're talking about. Okay, so event background, make sure there's a brief and agree that brief because that's going to go out public. So people have to agree that's the right thing to say. All right, number 8, make sure that music and activations are in place. Now, this is really, really important when it comes to music and activations. Let me share with you exactly why. So when you are doing an event, the old days, you could have a DJ there if you weren't already DJing yourself. Or sometimes you've got the sound and light guys playing music out for you. Now that's great because it's songs that people will like and will sing along to, and I remember that, and maybe it builds up the atmosphere. But when you're actually doing your thing live, if you're going live and streaming, which is more and more the case nowadays, if you're using an established song, like Simply the Best by Tina Turner when somebody wins, or We Are the Champions by Queen, or Let It Go from Elsa from Frozen, there's a very good chance that your social media will stop because you've got no copyright to be able to play it. And suddenly you'll be taken off the air. And you've got no clue why it's all gone bad. And it breaks the stream, breaks communication and the link to everybody watching. It's really hard to get them back again. And it means that that crucial element that you want to have in that wonderful video of the whole event, so you can use it to cut it down to social media and use it to sell for your next event, doesn't exist. So what I always do is I make sure I've got copyright-free music. I go onto various websites, I buy music that sounds like the songs I'm looking for, usually instrumental stuff, and I can play that at those strategic times. If you don't do that, you can end up with having very little footage apart from people's cameras, and you have to go back and put new music on it, which means it hijacks the ability to have the commentators talking in the first place. Get some copyright music, copyright-free music, agree it with the organizers, and then that's what you use. And it can be used all the time, and because it's unusual music, it can be a signature theme for the actual event at the same time. Okay, make sure... Okay, so copyright music, we got that, and make sure music and activations are in line with the event. Okay, so that was number 8. I sort of jumped past that. So whenever you've got an audience, there will be lulls. Make sure you schedule it in, but sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes a generator needs fixing. Sometimes somebody's got an injury, so you got to wait while things are going on. If you can, play music. If you can't play music and there needs to be something more, have something you can play with the audience, but always talk to the audience. Always let them know what's going on as much as you possibly can. Don't keep them in the dark. Doesn't mean you have to reveal everything, but then just talk up what else is coming through. So having a load of bullet points about the whole event is always useful for padding and filling that time. Number 10, have a number of standby audience partition elements that I mentioned there, just in case things go wrong. There could be games, there could be competitions. You might end up with a load of prizes to give out that you never actually gave out because you didn't actually need that time. That's a nice problem to have. You can hand them out to kids later on, or you can put them into raffles, or you can have them as an online competition post-event. You don't have to give everything out at that time, but you must be transparent as you do it, otherwise people will call it a fix, and if that word gets out, then you get up with lots of little trouble as well. Okay, number 11 is this one. Script everything as bullet points with the correct names, and check the names and check the protocols. If you say somebody's name wrong, because it kind of sounds a bit like that, they will be incredibly offended 99% of the time, because that's their chance to shine. And we had a rehearsal at the Fountain event, and at the time, one of the MCs introduced me, I won't say who it was, as Dave Crave. Somebody's written Dave Crave. He knew it was Dave Crane, but he read it out. It's the first time he actually connected with it. He changed it immediately as he said it, but can you imagine that for your branding? So he calls you Dave Crave. But won't bother you, it's not your name. But for me, it's going to be right. So you got to make sure, especially when people, your name is your brand, that you got everything right and everything correct. And if you're not sure about somebody's name, get somebody with authority to run the name by you and how you're meant to pronounce it. Write it down phonetically so you got exactly what it should be. If you just joined us, by the way, welcome to Speak on Stage. I hope this is useful for you. It's about how to host a world-class event. So this should be a checklist for anybody who's hosting events when we come back to having events. All right, number 12, brief your team and team leaders so everyone has a contact list. Everyone should have a contact list. Everyone should have a copy of the program. Everybody should be a one-stop shop for being able to find out what goes on and where. If you haven't got that, then they have a really weak link in the team, and ultimately people will blame you if people go, I don't know. I asked everybody and nobody knew what was going on. Even if they do know what's going on, but they don't have it written in front of them, then you'll still get the blame for that. And people will just look at it and have a post-mortem and say you didn't deliver, even if you did. Number 13, always look like the things are intentional and manage all expectations. So if things are going wrong, make sure you got plans for them. Don't make any big decisions unless you have no choice without running it by a decision maker. Like I mentioned, if there's a fire alarm that goes off, you don't mention anything, you just make a beeline for the organizers to find out whether it's true and whether you've got to deal with it. If you say it on the microphone, then you alert people to it. Be very careful what you say on the microphone, but also be very careful when you do discuss these things, you haven't got people from the public listening to you in the background, because that will spread as well. People will also say, I've just heard people talk about this, we should go. From experience, it's very, very rare about being at an event where it just got cancelled in the middle of it. I remember one time we did this event, going back about 25 years, where the venue caught fire and was in flames. So I was working for a radio station. So what did I do? I did a live radio report on how the event has caught flames. Yes, I did, but there you go. So things do happen, and it was not funny, but it was interesting to do the radio report. All right, number 14, almost finished now, is this. Always know how to start and end and have a second in command just in case. Let me explain. When you start the event, it's going to be done the right way. First impressions count. When you end, you need to know exactly how to do it. So it could be a thank you very much, good night. But before that might be an awards ceremony. And that needs to be calculated and written down. Who's doing what? Who's handing it out? Where are they going to stand? Are you going to bring them? How long do they get on? Are you getting photos of everybody as they all win? And that's it? Or do you want them to come back at the very end, in which case you just stand at the side? Are you going to have somebody handing out the trophies? All these things need to be choreographed in advance. If you make it up as you go along, I promise you it will go wrong and it will look cheap and nasty and you'll be dead embarrassed. You need to make sure you got all these different things covered when you do this live event, otherwise it will come back and bite you. And as second in command, certainly for the emceeing, have somebody just in case your throat goes bad or you get taken away or something goes wrong. Maybe the DJ can cover for you, or maybe you know somebody who's very, very good who comes along to shadow you. Always make sure there's somebody who can do it for you, because the audience won't know and won't care if it looks like it's taken charge of. If it goes quiet and there's a real problem and you're off dealing with it and nobody can step in and say, right, ladies and gents, just carry on, I'm just taking over the day for a little while, or whoever you are, then people will notice there's something, because there'll be silence, and then they start to panic, and they do. They always start to panic. All right, so then last but not least is this, number 15. Get plenty of footage to drive the event long after the doors have closed. Remember, your next event is only as good as the event that you're doing right now. Nobody cares about the event once it's finished, but they need to see evidence of how great it was. And people who hire speakers, people who hire hosts, people who hire any kind of entertainment, hire them from certainty. They want to know that you can deliver and you've got a past track record of delivering. That's what they look at, and that's what's going to shape it, because they need to go to sponsors and potential events, the decision makers, and say, this is who we're going to recommend. Have a look at this video. If you haven't got footage, but all you've got is a good reputation, it's not enough. Not nowadays. They can fly in anybody from anywhere who has got footage. So all the time, think about that. Sometimes give your phone to somebody. Sometimes make sure that you get access to the footage of the actual event. From experience, do both. Because by the time you get the footage of the event, you might find that you're not on it, or the bit you're looking for wasn't there. So if you can, take along somebody, hire them, pay them, whatever it takes to get some footage of you in action, because that's a game changer. And once you've got that, people know you're there, and they really enjoy the experience. So with that, that's the entire list. Wow, that was a bit of a mouthful. I can't believe I went on for such a long time. It's quite a long show with this, but it is quite important, especially if you're hosting events. So I'll move my head slightly to one from the other side, like that, which gives you enough time to be able to take a snapshot. There we go. Was that useful for you? Yes?
Of course.
Thank you so much. So if you want to be great at doing all these kind of things and you're really interested in being spectacular, check out the Industry Icon program. Go to SpeakOnstage and have a look down, and you've got all the different modules for training you to being a great speaker. But being a host is different. And being a host and being a speaker are very, very similar skill sets. Sometimes you should separate them. Sometimes it's better just being a speaker. So you come in, people applaud you, and you leave. But in my case, I usually want to do some emceeing as well, because I found the atmosphere that I need for being a speaker is very rarely already there by the time I get there. It's much easier if I do both. So I host the event and I come on as the speaker as well, because then the audience are used to me and I've got them up the right kind of fever pitch. The way that you open an event, the way you close it, are all trained and all available for you on SpeakOnstage, by the way. So if you want to know all the stuff I'm talking about, how to do it properly, and the nuts and bolts, it's all on SpeakOnstage. And it's a you can do it from $40. You can learn it for $40. I'm serious. Also, if you want to be able to work with me on the Industry Icon program to position you as an expert, and you want me to teach you all these skills and how to market yourself, grow your brand, do your social media, and push yourself forward to do your own TV, your blogs, your podcasts, then contact me. Go to SpeakOnstage.com, click on the link. You get a survey as well to see how well you are positioned, how much you know about the industry, and then we can book a 10-minute conversation. It's completely complimentary where I can work with you and see what's the best way to move forward. I don't work with everybody, by the way. Some people are turning around and saying no. And if you're looking for a job and you're saying, Dave, I'm only here after a job, forget it. That's not what I offer here. It's really about repositioning you as an industry expert and industry icon. And that's what I'm here to do. Oh wow, in summary, what a day. Really interesting. Thanks for being with me all this time. The subjects, as I mentioned before, is how to host world-class events. If you do have an event and you want to have a host that can do it, then contact me. I also know lots of other great speakers, so if I'm not available or your budget doesn't cover somebody as expensive as me, I do know other people that we can help you get to make it work. Many people put the cost of the MC as the last thing. It really needs to be factored in higher, because the right host or the right MC can make or break your event. Doesn't matter what else is going on. You can have the most amazing band or the most amazing venue, but if people are hanging around bored beforehand, it was flat. If you got somebody there at the worst venue in the world, but they're great fun, people don't care. They don't care for catering, it's fast food. As long as having a great time, and that's down to your MC. So it's worthwhile investing in the right person. Anyway, thanks for your comments. It's always great to have you with me. I hope this has been a great show for you. It's been a great show for me. And I look forward to catching up with you with the next episode. And we've got a really interesting next couple of shows lined up for you. Not going to tell you what they are. You'll have to find out. But it's been an utter honor having you with me.
Why not?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Absolutely.
Yes?
Right away.
Yes?
Sure thing.
And hopefully you make a lot of money out of it. Thanks for joining me. Speak on Stage. Hi, I'm Dave Crane. Come into my world. The world is a challenge. It's going to keep throwing things at you. Once upon a time it was easy. You went to school, you went to work, you did your job, you got a job, and everyone treated you well. You could look after your family. You could have a nice home. You could take great holidays. You could do anything you wanted to do, but the game has changed. Once upon a time it was very simple. All the things that we believed that the system told us we could do just don't work anymore. And nobody's told us how to deal with it. This is why we have to start again. We have to reinvent. We have to find a new way to move forward. Once upon a time, you had a safety zone. And in that safety zone, you had a comfort zone. And the world told you that's how it should be. But it's not like that anymore. Your safety zone is over here. That comfort zone is not going to work anymore. The only way you can do it is you learn to speak. You learn to grow your brand. You learn to be independent of the world. And let the world come to you. If you keep chasing, it's not going in the same direction that you thought it was. You have to find a way to be the very best you. And when you have, the world will be ready to take you on, look after you, and look after your family at the same time. We've never had such an exciting time to be alive, but it is tricky and it is uncomfortable, but I know that you can do it.